Welcome to Spurs Focus, your go-to spot for daily Tottenham news, transfers, and match updates. Don't forget to support the channel by hitting that subscribe button now. Let's dive into today's top story. Tottenham Hotspur's major summer transfer blow has been confirmed. Morgan Gibbs-White is staying at Nottingham Forest, despite Spurs triggering his 60 million release clause. What looked like a done deal turned into a legal war, with Forest accusing Spurs of an illegal approach and threatening action. On Saturday night, Forest officially announced a new contract for the 25-year-old star, and owner Evangelos Marinakis didn't hold back, sending a pointed message to Daniel Levy and any club eyeing Forest talent. Here's everything you need to know about the dramatic collapse of the Gibbs-White transfer. Tottenham Hotspur's summer transfer plans have been dealt a significant blow after Morgan Gibbs-White penned a new contract with Nottingham Forest. The 25-year-old was set to undergo a medical in North London earlier this month after Spurs had triggered a £60 million release clause in his contract. However, the East Midlands outfit blocked the deal after what they deemed to be an illegal approach for the midfielder from the Europa League winners. Forest also wrote to both Tottenham and the agent of Gibbs-White to inform both parties that they had contacted lawyers about the situation. On Saturday night, though, Gibbs-White ended the speculation surrounding his future as he signed a record 3-year deal at the City ground. "I felt at home at Forest from the moment I arrived," said Gibbs-White. "The support from the fans, my teammates and everyone around the club has been unbelievable. I believe in what we're building here, and with the backing of Mr. Marinakis and the enormous ambition he has, I want to be part of making something special. I'm excited for what's to come." Meanwhile, the club's owner, Evangelos Marinakis, added Morgan is a special player not just in terms of talent, but character and mentality. "He represents everything we want this football club to be. He is a winner, talented, ambitious, fearless, and proud." There was significant interest from various clubs, but we were determined to build our future with Morgan at the heart of it. "I promised our fans we would not only compete, but grow stronger and stronger every season. Today is another big step in that journey." Evangelos Marinakis has sent a pointed message to Tottenham and their chairman Daniel Levy after the Morgan Gibbs-White transfer saga ended on Saturday night. Gibbs-White was the subject of an approach from Spurs a couple of weeks ago, with Tottenham appearing to trigger the £60 million release clause in the 25-year-old's contract. A medical was scheduled ahead of the proposed move, but no sooner had that happened than Nottingham Forest closed off all communication and claimed an illegal approach had been made. Legal action was threatened, with Forest writing to both Spurs and Gibbs-White's agent. Nothing happened for 2 weeks, with Gibbs-White in limbo and Tottenham fans waiting for a deal to be concluded, with Spurs hopeful the transfer would still go through. Behind the scenes, however, Forest were working to convince Gibbs-White to stay, and they did just that with an announcement on Saturday night that he had extended his contract with the club. Marinakis has now sent a pointed message to Tottenham and any other clubs looking to do business with Forest. He said, "As long as I am in charge of Nottingham Forest, all these approaches should take place, I repeat, in an appropriate manner. I would never let anybody from any other team try to get a player from us or make something happen that we don't agree with, especially, as I said, with some guys that belong to our family." Tottenham have been dealt a big transfer blow as top target Morgan Gibbs-White signs a new deal with Nottingham Forest, ending all hope of a summer move to North London. But Spurs aren't done yet with Gibbs-White off the table. All eyes are now on Crystal Palace star Eberechi Eze, who has a £67.5 million release clause and is reportedly open to a move. Arsenal may be favourites, but with their spending already near £200 million, could Spurs swoop in and hijack the deal? Let's break down what's next for Ange Postecoglou's side and how Eze could transform their attack. Tottenham face a monumental transfer decision after top target Morgan Gibbs-White ended speculation surrounding his future by signing a new contract at Nottingham Forest. Almost immediately after wrapping up a deal to sign Mohamed Kudus from West Ham United, attention turned onto Gibbs-White with a medical at Hotspur Way arranged just hours after contact was made. However, Forest were of the belief an illegal approach had been made and that heavily delayed any switch going ahead. The 25-year-old, meanwhile, showed up for the start of pre-season and featured in friendlies against Chesterfield, Monaco and Fulham. Following the conclusion of a 3-1 defeat to the latter, Forest confirmed he had penned a record deal, keeping him at the club until the summer of 2028. Though it was only for an extra 12 months, it is almost guaranteed that his weekly wage has been increased, and if a release clause has been included, it will be for much more than £60 million. Despite seemingly wasting 2 weeks trying to sign him, the Lilywhites cannot afford to dwell on that failed transfer and simply have to complete a signing while on their pre-season tour in Asia, with a 30-man travelling squad now confirmed and several injury updates provided. With a significant amount committed to trying to bring in GIBBS-WHITE, supporters will undoubtedly now want a big signing to be made. A new defensive midfielder is one of many priorities, but a marquee addition, similar to the Forest star, is available for just a little bit more in Crystal Palace's Ebereki Eye. The England international has a £67.5 million release clause in his contract and is seemingly primed for a move away from Selhurst Park. At the start of July, Football London reported it was highly unlikely that Spurs would try to sign Ease. However, that stance may now have to change. Unfortunately, in that time, North London rivals Arsenal have communicated their desire to sign Easy, with the player also keen on the switch. However, having spent just under £200 million in the last 3 weeks, the Gunners are focused on outgoings. Unless some significant funds are raised, it is entirely possible that Arsenal cannot afford to sign him, and therefore Spurs could swoop in and hijack that planned transfer. Ease would bring a new dimension to Spurs' attack, and as they can also offer Champions League football, it seems likely Ease would be open to the move. A guarantee of more minutes could also be provided with Martin Odegaard and Declan Rice in his preferred role at Emirates Stadium. Tottenham fans, get ready for something very unusual. This Saturday, Spurs will play 2 matches on the same day, taking on Wycombe Wanderers behind closed doors before facing Luton Town at Kenilworth Road. That means manager Thomas Frank has the rare challenge of selecting 2 starting X, is from a mix of 32 senior players and academy stars. With Richarlison building back fitness, James Maddison back in training, and some U21 Euro stars returning, here's how Spurs plan to manage this double-header, and our prediction for the 2 starting lineups. Thomas Frank faces the unusual prospect of picking 2 Tottenham teams for 2 different matches on the same day. Spurs face a double-header of friendlies on Saturday as they take on Wycombe Wanderers and then Luton Town. The behind-closed-doors match against Wycombe was added at late notice to the schedule and kicks off at 11 a.m. 4 hours later, Spurs will kick off their previously scheduled friendly at Kenilworth Road against another League One outfit in Luton, who could feature former Tottenham goalkeeper Josh Keeley after his £1 million move last week. Frank will be in charge of both games on Saturday and must select 2 matchday squads from the 32 senior players potentially fit and available, as well as using plenty of the under-21s development squad. We wanted an extra game in our schedule to give as many players as many match minutes as possible, in order to put them in the best position. Physically, said the Dane, we will play 2 even, strong teams, and they will play between 60 and 75 minutes, maybe more. By the end of Saturday, 22 players will have played a lot of match minutes, and they will be in a very good place before we go on tour. Manus Solomon is unlikely to be fit after suffering a calf injury in training, while Dejan Kulusevski, Radu Dragusin and Brian Gill remain out after their different knee injuries and subsequent surgeries. However, James Maddison has returned to full training with the squad, and Kota Takai was expected to return to training this week, following a small training ground knock. Richarlison missed last weekend's win at Reading, but Frank said afterwards, "Richie has trained well. We're just building him. That's the big thing." He trained earlier today, and we expect a full training week next week, and right now, we expect him to play next week. The trio of Archie Gray, Matthijs Tel and Wilson Odobert, who were granted extra time off after their exploits at the U21 European Championships, should also be back in contention. Yes, we know it's near impossible to guess 2 teams on one day in pre-season, but here are our attempts at predicting the 2 Spurs starting lineups Frank could put out, as he takes the chance to look at some different combinations.